Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's session. My name is Osman Faiz, COO and CIO of AMTD Digital. We all know AMTD is a leading diversified financial services focused conglomerate. So today, I'm honored to be here to open this session to discuss with some leading industry partners, thought leaders, as well as some professionals in academia on a very important topic that we as a digital economy growing, where things are growing at an unprecedented speed. So the title of today's webinar is Enabling a Secure Tomorrow, Accelerating Development of a Cyber-Safe Community. Firstly, please allow me to introduce the key stakeholders who shall be witnessing the event as our special guests, also those institutions that have committed to come together in signing the MOU to establish for the first time ACT-wise Cybersecurity Center of Excellence in Singapore. Today, our guest of honor, Mr. Sapnendu Mohanty, Chief FinTech Officer, Monetary Authority of Singapore. We also have as a witness, Ms. Annie Koh, Vice President, Business Development, Singapore Management University. We have lead founding member, Mr. Calvin Choi, Chairman and CEO of the AMTD Group. Other founding members, Dr. Faridun Hamdullahpur, President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Waterloo. Mr. Frank Sisio Jr., CEO and co-founder of the IQ4 and CWA. Mr. Chia Hock Lai, President of Singapore FinTech Association. We also have the supporting organizations being represented here. We have Hong Kong Cyberport, Chairman Dr. Lee George Lam, AMTD Foundation, as well as Infinity Power. In today's consortium or today's MOU, we also have the knowledge advisor, Ernst & Young, Regional Managing Partner, ASEAN, Mr. Nam Soon Liu. So in today's webinar, we shall be discussing some of the burning questions around cybersecurity. How can we solve the cybersecurity skills gap that are so urgent these days? What are we doing? And what we would like to suggest to the industry to collaborate and do more. So once again, welcome all who have just joined us on this session. Now, without further ado, let me turn the microphone over to our chairman and the CEO of AMTD Group, the lead founder, to give his opening speech. Mr. Calvin Choi, please.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, everyone. First, I would want to extend my most warm welcome to all of you, especially to our partners, friends, joining us all the way from North America, from different time zones. Today, I think we are witnessing this very special moment, an important milestone, the launch of our ACT-wise Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. Led by AMTD, we are proud to present to you all of our founding members, knowledge partners, and also supporting organization. Let me repeat it once again, I think to show the importance of it. Other than AMTD, we have the University of Waterloo, IQ4, Ernst & Young, the Singapore FinTech Association. We also have from the Hong Kong government side, the Cyberport, and also AMTD Charity Foundation, and also Infinity Power. I think together we built our shared vision and established our commitment to strengthen cybersecurity topic, in its capacity, and especially very importantly to talent building in Singapore and beyond. Extending this vision and spirit across the rest of ASEAN, I am connecting through to the Greater Bay Area and the rest of Asia. I'm especially honored to have Mr. Mohanty from MAS to join us as the special guest of honor. And we also have from the Hong Kong Cyberport side, Chairman, Dr. George Lam. The recent pandemic, I think, has pressed a fast forward button for the overall digitalization of the world. AMTD Group is committed to the digital transformation of economy and such creation of opportunities journey for people, bringing innovations, enabling and empowerment for businesses, especially the SMEs, to thrive in Singapore and with Singapore as the global and regional financial hub and the global fintech center. However, as the digital economy grows in scale, cybersecurity becomes one of the most important areas to provide the much needed assurance and trust in the digital economy with the necessary technologies and tool sets, especially in the digital and virtual banking industry. More importantly, I think we see a significant amount of a shortage in cybersecurity talents, and there are more than 2 to 3 million of open and fulfilled cybersecurity jobs in the world, and especially for Asia, fast growing, but the talent gap keeps increasing. I think to wrap up my opening speech, I would want to now officially announce the launch of our Advice Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. With our permanent headquarters in Singapore, we will focus to bring more awareness towards the topic, developing and cultivating more digital talents in this specialized area. And we are also committed to each year organize our cybersecurity summit to invite everyone, all the thought leadership and all the digital big brains to share more insight about the topic. Today is just the start of our center, but I assure you there will be many more rollouts and important activities of the center in the future. So once again, thank you everyone for joining, and I'll pass the time back to Osman. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin Choi, for your encouraging speech and the commitment. May I now request our guest of honor to give his opening remarks. Please welcome Mr. Swapnendu Mohanty, the Chief FinTech Officer of Monetary Authority of Singapore.
Thanks, Osman. Very, very big congratulations to the team. Calvin, members from IQ4, Cyberport, SFA, University of Waterloo, to come together to put this Center of Excellence together. I just wonder what is that @ stands for. I understand the Y's, but I didn't get that hyphen in between.
It's actually AMTD. It's the A. So it's A. So that's the AMTD and then all the words.
Okay, so there's a wise people in that Center of Excellence. So so good name. I mean, from where I sit, I think during the crisis, we all know that the growth of digital traffic, online transactions have just gone through the roof. I mean, there are numbers. If you go to Statista on a real-time website which compares statistics of all different kind of data, and you can see that if you take the reference period from January to February and you look at now, there's a 32% plus increase in the number of online transactions. So it's a huge growth. And Calvin, the number you talked about, 1.5 or 2 million job gaps, that report, if I'm correct, is referring to a report which came early part of last year by the CSIS group. Now that was done pre-pandemic. Imagine if you add the pandemic growth, what should be the likely gap in 2022? It will be going through the roof. So my sense is that, and this is where I believe this industry is going there, is that if you look 10, 20 years back, the technology specialist was a separate group of people. They were treated differently. They were specialized skill set. A lot of effort was put together to build that set of star people who are going to drive digital automation and so forth. And it took almost 10 years or 20 years, if I can stretch, to make all of us digitally native. All of us are in some form, have some sort of technical skills, which we are quite comfortable with while we're doing our job. I think cyber is also going to go there. Now we are talking of a very specialist job called cybersecurity workforce. But I think some point in time, all of us will get cybersecurity native in our thinking. It will be part of our DNA. It will be part of our construct, part of our day-to-day job. One thing I will expect this particular Center of Excellence to do is to expand the soft skill in every part of our discussion, whether we are a cybersecurity workforce member or not. And I think all of us have to start thinking in some form of common construct of where do we see how to protect our own cyber network, our own apps in this digital construct. So having that extension would add a much richer value to the ecosystem, because we all know we cannot train a specialist group of people and that will suffice the huge demand the market is going to ask from the ecosystem to fulfill. So it's just impossible. So getting an expanded soft skill, building the fundamentals across industry will go in a long way to fulfill this gap. So with that hope, I would anticipate that within a year or two, we will see a massive growth in cyber skills in at least in the Asian region here. I'm very thankful to Hong Kong Cyberport to come together, because both the center, Hong Kong and Singapore, are a leading financial center for Asia. And we have some responsibility to encourage and develop this particular skill set among our workforce. So happy to see both of the center coming together. Of course, I'm always thankful to universities and academicians. When they put their mind behind such sector, we get better people. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. All good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Mohanty, for your gracious presence and the message that you have given us. Definitely, you have taken some of the thunder away from the panel discussion. But thanks for your comments. We will keep that in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will have the official launch of the @WISE Cybersecurity Center of Excellence in Singapore, and that would be done through a MOU signing ceremony digitally. May I request the guests, the witness, and the supporting organizations to show your support.
Annie, I like your double thumbs up. Huh?
Thank you. Thank you all for the esteemed guests and the leaders for your gracious presence, your support and timely commitment in establishing this Center of Excellence in Singapore. Definitely will go a long way in the development of a cyber-safe community. So thank you very much. Let me now introduce our respected panelists and the moderator for today's webinar. During this next 1 hour or so, you will have the opportunity to hear from the following panel of experts joining us to share their insights. We are very happy to introduce Manisha Tang, an international news anchor. She's going to be the moderator for today's panel discussion. We also have Florian, Executive Director of Cybersecurity and Privacy Institution, University of Waterloo. We have Rodney Peterson, Director of the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. Many of you know that as NICE, and they're the one who sets the global standards on cybersecurity. We also have Frank Ciccio Jr. He's the CEO and co-founder of IQ4, a leading online workforce and mobility platform company in the United States. We also have Gopal, Vice President and CISO and Chief Data Officer of Auto Club Group. And of course, myself with little 27 years of international banking experience in technology and operations domain. Let me now hand over the microphone to Manisha Tang to moderate for an insightful and thought-provoking discussion with our expert panel. Please, Manisha.
Osman, thank you so much. And it's a real honor to be here to moderate this panel today. Like Osman said, my name is Manisha Tang. And you know, on a daily basis, I cover business and financial news, and cybersecurity, cybercrime is an interesting topic for us. In fact, 8 days ago, if you were watching the news, you would have noticed that here in Singapore, phishing attacks were reported as rising by 2,500% in the first half of 2020. And that's just one element, as many of you know, of cybercrime. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So people have been cheated out of millions of dollars, and that was just in the banking sector. You know, my thanks for Calvin and Supnendu for lining up some of the things we're going to talk about in this conversation. And Supnendu, you know, Osman said maybe you stole our thunder. We're going to do our best to deliver because we have a highly esteemed panel. The clock is running, so I'm going to tell you guys that you all need to stick to the rules. They are, if you wish to respond on a particular question, please indicate to me that you wish to do so. And also do try and keep those answers tight because we've got 5 of you and a big subject to cover. And to begin with, Osman, I want to talk to you because we need to get an overview, first of all, of the level of cybercrime that we're facing in the world today and why this is such a serious problem.
Thanks, Manisha. I think we heard from Swapnindu Mohanty, who alluded that due to this this digitization and post-pandemic, things have accelerated so much. So statistically, it says the digitization that would have happened in 5 years have just happened within this year. So with that, the client behavior has changed dramatically. People does things online, sitting at home, and so does the e-commerce. So more and more, as we get connected with more and more devices digitally, that exponentially takes the risk at a different level. So that's one of the angle. And the challenge can come from multiple directions. I would like to hijack the word technami. So technami is like tsunami of technology. So with that development, we are seeing a plethora of devices and tools, whether we call it iCloud, machine learning, blockchain, all that kind of modern technology platforms that are coming. These are all adding to the risk of this. At the same time, the number of people globally who are now digitally connected is significant. So one is that technology aspects to it. The second is the people aspect to it. And I think this is where, again, Swapnindu mentioned that the weakest link in this whole chain is the human aspect. So which means if the people are not made aware, you could be the victim, whether it is through phishing, as you mentioned, Manisha, whether, clicking to a wrong email or SMS, any of the downloads, in many ways. So awareness aspects is extremely crucial. The other from the Singapore lens is the SME sector, which I think is crucial because they are typically not so well off financially like big corporates to deploy these modern technology tools. So we also have a responsibility together with government and private sector to work together. So this is where I think this platform of this kind can be extremely powerful.
And what's been remarkable also in recent studies, as they've shown here in Singapore, there is a lack of awareness amongst consumers as well when they're being hit. Let's, though, talk about this technami that you speak of. I mean, it's such a great word to describe what many of us are experiencing. I want to pick it up with you, Frank, because apart from being CEO of IQ4, you also are a serial entrepreneur. I say that like it's a condition, but it's a good one. And particularly in emerging technology, when you think about a tsunami wave, you sort of have to be at the crest of that. You have to be ahead of any wave. But I am sure that you take the seriousness of the issue, as quite a major priority because it has to be on your radar when you're at the edge of emerging tech.
Yes, exactly, Manisha. We've, and I think for 2 reasons. One, awareness, and the second, preparedness. We exist in a world that's connected. Our devices, our business, our personal information, this is all at risk for those who seek to exploit the data and presents itself in the form of insider threat, nation state, Internet of Things, cybercrime, dark web, to name a few. From our business perspective as an entrepreneur, we see a landscape change in the incredible pace of sophistication and behavior of the threat actors. So the need to keep pace in developing our workforce, professionals, students alike, are straining the ecosystem, and they're creating vulnerabilities. And in addition to emerging technologies like IQ4, it requires organizations like us, and especially small organizations, which don't have a lot of resources, as for example, the large banks, to have a deep understanding of the engineering and implementation of our own technology to support customers, such as the large Fortune companies in the financial sector, We refer to that as third-party risk. That is a door for the bad actors to exploit corporate assets. And this is what we believe is something we need to take seriously.
Yeah, interesting there that you've talked about resources, and resources are not equal for all, are they? You know, you were just alluding to the big banks having higher resources. Let's take it then to how this works in practice. Gopal, I'd like to pick this up with you because we've already had it outlined, you know, in Calvin's speech and Satnendu's speech, and also in what Osman was saying earlier, that we're now dealing with a new normal. You are a CISO, you know, you are a Chief Information Securities Officer in evolving enterprises. So what are the skills required? Are they available? Do you have the resources to meet the need?
Thank you, Manisha. I think that's a great question. So before I talk about the skills, right, I don't want to scare people, but I think I want to give you a little facts around how my life is. What am I facing on a day-to-day basis, right? So there's an estimated attack happening every 39 seconds in 2019, and ever since the COVID attack, that has shrunk to 14 attacks per second is happening somewhere around the world. 95% of the attacks are happening due to human errors. The bad people are turning out 230,000 malwares every single day. For a well-funded nation state, it takes 18 minutes. Attacks are happening at machine speeds. It takes 18 minutes for an attack for a well-funded nation to attack a victim, and around 4 to 6 hours for a well-funded crime group. Whereas from an organization perspective, the mean time to detect that you have been breached is around 180 days. So it takes 18 minutes to compromise, 180 days to, in a mean, to detect an attack. The cost of remediation is reaching around 150 million, up to $150 million. So that's the landscape we are dealing with. The cybersecurity is now the responsibility, the responsibility or accountability of cybersecurity is at the board level, right? So that, and we have to support. So from a skill perspective, we have to maintain operational systems that's been developed 10, 15 years ago. At the same time, we have to have new roles, right? There's so much new technology that's coming in. I need to make sure that these technologies are developed with security in mind, right? So there's different sorts of roles, threat analyst, risk analyst, behavior analyst, right? So there's so many different roles that I need to fill, which I'm finding it very difficult to fill.
Yeah, I want to pick that up with Rodney, because we've already talked, Rodney, about how COVID-19 has accelerated our adoption of digital technologies. But look, here's a CISO telling us he's already got so many roles that need filling. He doesn't have the people to fill them. And now we've got a world that's moved towards digitalization. What it thought it would do in 5 years, it's done in the space of months. So that urgency is very much there, right, Rodney?
Yeah, but I think the risks are ever changing, and we often focus on the threat or the bad actors, but that's probably the most steady part or constant part of the equation. It's really the vulnerabilities, much as we've been hearing about today, whether it be the people or whether it be the technology, the software, where we have the greatest deal of control. So the move to teleworking undoubtedly increased the vulnerabilities that organizations were experiencing due to increased use of personal devices instead of corporately managed computers, or the existence of out-of-date policies and procedures that were largely written with on-premises learning and work in mind, and the increased reliance on video conferencing like we're doing in this event, and other productivity tools that had not undergone organizational cybersecurity reviews or approvals. So the pandemic and mass transition to telework or remote learning has really brought to light the importance of embracing the mobility of the modern workforce. It's here to stay, and it's going to require us to continuously plan and mitigate those vulnerabilities as they arise.
And just as a quick follow-up, I guess what it also does is it puts pressure on regulators to get ahead of it, because everything is changing so fast, right?
Yeah, and our organization is a non-regulatory organization, but whether it's consumers and customers putting the pressure on producers, for example, of software, or whether it becomes more regulated in the future, that's certainly a fast-moving environment that we need to kind of stay in touch with, because The responsibilities, the risk, as we've been saying all along, are only going to get greater over time if there aren't greater accountability in the process.
Well, of course, we have to all continue to educate ourselves on a very timely basis on the subject, don't we? And speaking of educating ourselves, let's get into the question of what academia can do to assist. I'd like to bring in Florian, because Florian Kirschbaum, you can speak to this and how you make sure that the grads are available to fill the skills gap.
Thank you, Manisha. The increased digitization that we are talking about here currently brings two trends to the labor market. On the one hand, more and more jobs are replaced by better technology, demanding from workers to seek new fields of employment. On the other hand, more people are needed to develop and manage those tools. The second trend is hitting us at the moment, and we are experiencing a skills gap in artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. This is particularly true for entry-level jobs in cybersecurity. However, the harsh truth for many people seeking reskilling to enter into these jobs is that they will eventually again be replaced by better tools and more automation. The open question is just when. As an academic institution, the University of Waterloo is working on both trends. We're educating the people with the necessary skills to succeed in the digital economy. We are producing more than 600 graduates with training in cybersecurity and privacy each year. Furthermore, we have more than 150 graduate students in those areas. However, most importantly, we are not only educating to succeed in the short term, but also in the long term. Two things distinguish the University of Waterloo most from other universities. First, almost all of our undergrads pass through what we call the COA program, which equips them with industrial experience by internships in their field of study. No other top 10 computer science university in North America has a comparable program. Second, we conduct world-class research with our students, enhancing the cybersecurity and privacy tools that build the foundation for automating the cybersecurity process. We are a top 10 computer security research university in North America, and our students profit from this research in their education. Our students leave with the training to develop new tools and enhance the trends toward more automation. Hence, they are well prepared to succeed in the digital economy. As the University of Waterloo, we are engaging in the cybersecurity COE to bring exactly this kind of knowledge and expertise to help build a workforce for cybersecurity that can sustain digitization in the long run.
So Florian, can I just ask you a follow-up question on that? I also know in terms of your experience, you have some pretty important collaborations, partnerships, you have conversations with the banking community, for example, over there in Canada. What are some of the things that you've been learning about their needs when it comes to graduates in this space?
In general, as I said, there is currently a need for more cybersecurity specialists in order to fill the gap until we have better and more automated tools. And these are usually people at the engineering level. And as I can speak about the University of Waterloo, which graduates some of the best students in Canada, almost all companies in Canada and worldwide are seeking to employ students from the University of Waterloo as engineers in not only the field of cybersecurity, but also in that field.
You must be very proud. It's good to know, and great to learn lessons from how you've managed to benchmark this. Let me just follow that up with you though, Osman, because I know that this skills gap has been a really big concern for you. It's pretty serious, particularly here in Asia, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you heard from some of the panelists and Gopal, the threat landscape. The challenge in Asia, or particularly in Singapore as a reference, I can say that the data says, which is about a year old, that 3,000 to 5,000 open jobs or gaps that we are currently facing. And this is moving very fast because of the pandemic and the way the people have started, going online. So I think it's pretty serious and it's growing every day, and given the risk that are also coming through. So question is, the landscape of the risk is also moving, the breadth of it. at the same time, the scale at which the people need to be lifted to manage and defend is also quite significant. So I think this is where institutions like this, or platform like this, where we are bringing academia, the professionals, the students from East and West coming together is going to be very powerful and effective to address some of these gaps. So the data is already published, which is almost a year old, but it is quite scary. And being a professional in the banking world for so many years, particularly in tech domain, we have seen even our existing resources do need to upskill them and reskill them in order to withstand the current risk, risk parameters that are evolving. On the other side, from the students who are coming in, they also need a bit of an apprenticeship or attachment or exposure, how these tools are getting deployed in the real life. So all these combination would only scale up and make people far more aware with the right set of tool to manage that crisis.
Okay, well then let's take it to the issue of standards, because you were just talking about needs and necessities in places like Singapore. We were talking about Asia, and we're very grateful that our panelists are over in North America and they've stayed up late to be a part of this. But of course, standards need to be, it's a global problem, right? So we need to think about how do we come up with common standards. Rodney, I'd like to put it to you to talk about this. How are we seeing this need for cross-industry standards in all sectors? And if we are, why is it important?
Yeah, thank you, Manisha, for that question, because after all, I come from the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the U.S. Department of Commerce, so it's obvious that cybersecurity standards are particular. But I think I would approach it, at least as we do at NIST, as we're known, in three different ways. We answer three important questions. First is, why is cybersecurity or cybersecurity standards important for organizations? And that answer has already been addressed by several panelists already, and it really comes down to the threats, vulnerabilities, and risks that have been the subject of our discussion have to rise and be elevated to the attention of executives and boards of directors so that cybersecurity can be integrated as part of an organization's overall enterprise risk management strategy. So it all starts with risks in terms of answering why this is even important. Secondly is standards around what and how to do things. And so that's another area that NIST is particularly active in. Particularly, NIST has a framework for improving critical infrastructure cybersecurity. And there are many other NIST publications that address security controls and engineering practices. So these are standards not only required of the US government, but many other governments and private sector organizations look to them as best practice. And then finally, where my organization, the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, comes in, is we address the who question. Who is going to do it? And what's the responsibilities, first and foremost, of all users who need some level of cybersecurity awareness and training and accountability around the use of technology, but also the workforce that's needed for cybersecurity that we're mostly talking about today. So our workforce framework for cybersecurity, also known as the NICE framework, creates that common taxonomy and approach to organizing cybersecurity work with detailed list of tasks, knowledge, and skill statements. And together, these are building blocks that can lead to an agreed upon set of cybersecurity competencies that learners acquire and that employers need. So I think the reason that our NICE community, and by that I mean globally, supports a standard for education and workforce development is so that we can get all the players in this vast ecosystem, ranging from the employers in both the public and private sectors, to education and training providers, to the learners, which includes our students' employees, to get this ecosystem moving in the same direction. So this standardized approach and lexicon will facilitate our ability to make progress, quite frankly, and also to help close this gap we're talking about, because it really does affect both our economic security and our national security.
I'm quite curious. I just want to follow that up and dig a little bit deeper, though, because one of the themes that we've kept on talking about throughout this launch has been about how things have just been sped up. We've talked about pressing the fast forward button. Do you feel the pressure of that challenge?
Yes, I do. I think you hear the numbers about the growth in terms of the gap, but we also invest in a tool called Cyberseek. And you can go to Cyberseek and see the demand in the United States. And not only is the demand or the number of open jobs going up, but those employed in cybersecurity work roles is going up at the same time. So we absolutely see the growth in the demand. There's a couple ways we look at it, though, and I think we heard this mentioned earlier as well. One is the long-term view. You know, the reason we're working so closely, not only with colleges and universities, but our elementary, middle school, high school, the youth, the future of this nation, of the world, to make sure they're interested in careers and they have the skills that they need. But there's also a number of ways we can deal with the demand right now that we quite frankly haven't done enough with before. One example is apprenticeships. You know, in the United States, we're working actively to put people into the workplace so that they can actually learn as they earn and develop the skills while they're on the jobs. We also see the reskilling you heard about earlier, where we take existing workforce and retrain them and upskill them so that they can take on the cybersecurity roles. So it's not going to be enough to wait for that future generation of students to come into the workforce. We have to accelerate our learning and workforce development.
Yeah, I certainly hear what you're saying here. And I'd like to bring in Frank at this point, because I want to extend on this, and I want to talk about how you come up with a different education model to address workforce readiness, because clearly we have to keep evolving and we've got to evolve fast. And do you see that, Frank, as being something critical to ensure success in this area?
Thank you again. And I think, so yes, the answer is we absolutely see an emerging model evolving here. And to Rodney's point, we definitely need to have our models grounded in these standards. It's the only way to create a common ontology that industry, government, and education can speak the same language in terms of skills. So as we've talked, the business change and the landscape definition of skills based on technology and the data that's impacting that is moving at an unprecedented pace. So our academic and enterprise learning infrastructure, the ecosystem, has really not changed much, especially in terms of its technology since inception. The result is an inability for the ecosystem to pivot and provide the training of the students' talents that's needed to keep pace with the business needs. So we believe that the new model that's unfolding creates a transparency between industry and education that leverages technology, standards, and models. This new model will blend academic and applied learning, basically the ability for students to apply what they learn to real-world projects. And the power skills that our industry is seeking. This takes the form of virtual apprenticeships, internships. These are models that work. We know that. We know that when students come on board and work with organizations, they learn and organizations want to hire. So why don't we do that from a virtual perspective and structure it in a way that plugs and plays with the academic infrastructure? This transparency is then driven with the on-the-job training experience so that upon graduation, students can hit the ground running. It also enables students in academic institutions and industries with the pathways and pipeline visibility based on the supply and demand of skills versus degrees and job descriptions. So we believe that this is taking form a new transformational model to find, build, and retain great student talent. Now, in terms of what do we see being critical to ensure its success, it's industry driven. It must be driven by industry and government, the employer, to expedite to drive the content, expertise, and funding, which we believe is the core mechanism that will ensure success. The business needs to use standards, like we mentioned, based on taxonomies to define the gaps and predictive analytics needed to manage their pipeline of talent. You know, if you can understand the skills you need and the skills you have, you can understand what the gap looks like. Using technology to massively scale, because that's what technology does. Yeah. The need to create awareness and opportunity will, fit the need virtually, and it's critical. So the employers state that the essential power skills such as leadership, communication, professionalism, critical thinking, problem solving is the key for students who want to learn. And the ability to build the student skills in areas of graduation drastically reduces the cost of finding, training, and retaining talent.
Yeah.
And last point is that ROI is somewhere between 10 to 20 times the current cost of finding and driving on students and building those really key needed skills that we need in the marketplace.
Yeah, and that ROI is so important it's such an important metric, isn't it?
Yes.
And, you know, as you talk about skills, and you talked about critical thinking and some of those other attributes, it's something that has certainly been pipelined into the Singapore education system, and now you've got people at a different level also being encouraged by programs like Skills Future Support from the government. And you talked about how the governments also need to be involved as well as industry. Here the government subsidizes 70 to 90% of program fees accredited with SSG. So you know, the motivation for students to upskill, to reskill, it's all there for sure. I want to just follow this up with Florian, actually. A bit of an off-the-wall question. Florian, I was wondering, which courses of yours in this field are attracting the most interest?
Thank you, Manisha. As a university which is already closely tied with industry for its research and co-op programs, our students are highly sought after by leading companies in the world, such as, for example, but not only AMTD, as I already mentioned, and admission to the University of Waterloo programs is among the most competitive in the world. Hence, our students seek courses which prepare them best for the job market. And this is currently, by far, our courses in artificial intelligence and cybersecurity.
So what's interesting here, Florian, and I just want to follow this up is, you know, and I'm not joking when I say this, here in Asia, we have this sort of running mantra that, you know, people from the day they're born, they're told, become a doctor, become a lawyer. It's a thing we hear, right? And maybe it's just anecdotal and you only see it in the movies. But how do you, what are your views on sort of the cultural differences around the world in the approach to jobs in this field?
So I believe that there is a fundamental problem here is people are told to become lawyers and doctors and business and managers because they earn more. However, there's a very interesting study, and it was featured on the computer science homepage of the University of Waterloo. A master's in computer science from the University of Waterloo now earns more than the average MBA from a top MBA school. And this makes me very proud, and I believe that this is actually the right way to go, and we actually see where the skills gap is going.
I'm sure that's a very fulfilling feeling to be able to share that with all of us. And, you know, you heard it here first if you're sitting here in Asia. Gopal, let me take it to you, because earlier you had shared with me some wonderful experiences that you had when getting involved with programs for youngsters when it came to this particular field.
Yes, so I think I've been involved with the CWA mentoring students for the last 5 years. We are seeing some amazingly wonderful talent with the young students. I think what we need to do is inspire them. And just like I think you were saying that everybody wants to be a doctor, a lawyer, right? I mean, we need to inspire them and let them know that there are amazing career opportunities for them waiting. And there is actually future-proof career opportunities that cannot be automated. Right, so that's something that we need to do to inspire the young students. One of the things that I'm involved in right now, we are piloting is not only at the university level. I believe that we have to start inspiring students at the middle school and high school level. And I believe that given the right environment, motivation, and mentorship, these young students can solve problems faster than we can solve them actually in the industry. I think so. Their creative thinking, everything is so amazing, right? So we need to actually create the right environment and reach out to them early and talk about the opportunities they have.
You know, Gopal, can I just ask you a personal question? I hope you don't mind, in front of everyone and all of our audience as well. Are you originally from India?
Yes, I am from India.
And of course, India is a place replete with a number of institutes of technology, and there's a huge movement over there. But when you were growing up, what did your parents tell you you needed to be?
Yeah, I think just like every Indian kid, right? Everybody wants to be in the most high-paying jobs, right? And right. I think over a period of time, banking was, when I was growing up, banking was a high-paying job, and then computer science. And medicine has always been a standard high-paying job, right? And we are now saying that with the opportunities with digital, there are so many other opportunities, right? Even from a parent perspective, one of the things that I try to tell all the parents, you need to change your mindset a little bit to see that there's huge amount of, from a digital perspective, right? You also need to tell your kids there are other opportunities for you, right? So it is it has to be both at the parental level and also at the student level, especially in countries like India and the emerging countries where education is a core aspect of everybody's life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And since you're only in your 30s, I trust that wasn't a long time ago. Let's move the conversation back to you, Osman, because I just want to talk about some other big macro themes and, why this is particularly important for, and you touched on this earlier, about enterprises and banks that have started investing in cybersecurity areas and they've been nurturing talent. Okay, you touched on that. But what about SMEs? Because Asia is a place of SMEs. It's a place of family offices. It's a very different sort of makeup. So again, there's sort of cultural differences in the way that, in the character of businesses in this part of the world. Just walk me through that. And what are the struggles for SMEs?
Well, I mean, firstly, let me say a few things about this initiative that we are coming together. Like our chairman Calvin has just shared, the Center of Excellence is really a shared vision, and a commitment to this by this group here today, answering to the calling of Singapore government's Smart Nation vision. Also in line with AMTD's strategic plan on IDEA, which is International Digital Education and Assets. So this is to lead industrial collaboration efforts and take early steps to build a center of excellence that addresses the cybersecurity talent and capabilities gap. So that's the kind of a context where we are coming from. Now, essentially, this is like a platform to build industrial partnership to collaborate. We are trying to form industrial alliance through apprenticeship, organize and solve some real business issues, through having meaningful roundtable discussion, online curriculum platform. We plan to host an annual summit in Singapore and cybersecurity tools for workshops, webinars like this, and broadcast. So these will be all like tailored courses with reputable educational institutions. Idea is to train, certify, develop, and build a scale of cybersecurity talents and capabilities. And I don't think this can be achieved without building relationship with key communities, the key stakeholders within the Singaporean ecosystem, with local government, public and private sector, and academia coming together. We are committed to building the foundation for Singapore for cybersecurity talent, which accordingly, as I said, that our statistics says that there are 3,000 to 5,000 gaps in terms of the skills, and it's increasing very fast. So the key differentiator for us on this platform would be to energize and bring businesses, stakeholders, and leaders together through means like creating curated content, materials, tailoring for courses and certification programs, and all that apprenticeship and others that I've mentioned. But it's also an industrial experience because things are moving very fast, as Gopal and Frank mentioned. That the landscape of the risk or the threat is also changing. Now, obviously, your question was more alluding towards SME, which I'll just touch on. Firstly, it's a brilliant, spot-on question that are probably in everybody's mind, at least in the Singapore in academia and professional bodies. So we should not just focus on the big established corporates or FIs. We should offer talent and solutions and provide some of the cybersecurity advice and value-add service to SMEs, practically helping them to be protected from this risk, and also offer courses to the SME owners to have such concepts and how cyber risk can do harm to their business. Because in many cases, either they don't have the affordability or don't have the right set of tools that they're getting access to. So a simple cyber incident can be very devastating for SMEs. And we have to watch this space very carefully and potentially give them the right set of capabilities and make them protection ready. And that's one of our business plan, as many of you know, in Singapore, that we have applied for a digital bank license, which are pretty much geared towards SME. So that's what I would say, that there is a large section in the corporate world that we need to be very mindful of, not just individuals, not just big corporates, but that sector which has to be paid a lot of attention.
Okay, I'm very mindful of the time, so I still want to fit in just a few more questions. And I want to pick up on the SME question once more and just follow it up with you, Gopal, because if you were approached by a CISO of an SME, what words of advice would you have for them?
I wouldn't call it an advice. I don't know if I'm, because we have not solved this problem, right? I wouldn't call it an advice, but I would say some of the things that I'm looking into and I would suggest to my peers would be talent, right? Because your success is dependent upon having an A-class team or a great team of cybersecurity professional and supporting them and giving them all the tools and supports. And also to make sure that your organization is not just the job of the CISO, but the entire organization is aware about the risks. Like you talk about phishing, right? It is the responsibility of every single employee of the company. Then building a program based on data and metrics, right? So you need to have a defendable program. The third thing I would say is the ability to communicate to various stakeholders, not just IT folks, right? The ability to communicate to them in the language they understand. Because if you start talking in a technical jargon, you're going to miss them. So if you're going to talk to a CFO, you need to talk in terms of dollars and talk about risk and convert risk into dollars, right? What's the bottom line? All those numbers, right? And finally, a realization that there is nothing called perfect cybersecurity. The ability to work towards building a defendable program should be the goal, and keep on making incremental improvement, and building on that should be the way to go about it. Because there's nothing called perfect cybersecurity in the world.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. There is nothing called perfect. That's a great point. And actually, at that juncture, I'm going to go slightly off script because I want to bring up a question that was sent by our own VIP, Mr. Subnendu Mohanty. And Subnendu asking a really interesting question of our panelists. And this is about how we're told as high as 80% of cyber issues are linked to poor cyber hygiene and the user or consumer's basic mistakes in exposing their systems to cyber attacks. So clearly there's a need there for education. So he's asking, is the solution hiring more cyber police or educating people on how to protect themselves? I think maybe I'll put that one to Rodney.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to comment on, our NICE framework is pretty broad for all the reasons you've been hearing. It's not just the IT people or the people who are in the CISO's office that have a role to play. Training and awareness is a work role in our NICE framework, and we need people who are committed to making sure that their users, behave appropriately, follow policies and procedures, and learn about the latest risks. I would add one more thing, though. When we were talking about the high salaries in this field, a very overlooked part of the workforce are the educators. The teachers in our schools, the faculty at universities, who quite frankly are not paid very well as compared to what you might make in the corporate world. And so not only are we losing them if they have those skills to the corporate world, we're not rewarding them appropriately. So absolutely, we need to consider those who do awareness training education as much about the workforce as those who are doing the technical work as well.
Yeah, Frank, I know you have a view on this. Subnendu followed up his excellent question with, do we also have a mask and hand sanitizer equivalent, like a cyber toolkit, so households and small enterprises can protect themselves? It's a great, very timely analogy, but what do you think?
Wow, I wish. Unfortunately, I don't think so. But there is an interesting point to this, which is the whole awareness piece. I think last statistics we've seen, and we've had thousands of students going through our program, and the underlying theme of most of these attacks occur because of phishing emails, right? So it's really, we're talking almost 80%. That's a huge number of simply somebody getting an email that they think is for them from somebody they know, and they open it. And that opens the door for the bad guys. So from a mask and a hand sanitizer, if we could just get that point across, I think that would go a long way in setting up the barriers of entry.
Maybe that's where people like me come in, the journalists.
Exactly.
Get the communications out there. Well, you know, when we all work together, we can make it happen.
There you go.
We are coming into the last 5 minutes or so of this panel discussion. And I just want to talk about the links between what you've all been learning in North America, where most of you are, and what's happening out here in Singapore. And on that note, and before I ask Osman to kind of wrap things up in terms of hopes for the Center of Excellence here in Singapore, I just want to ask you, Florian, and this is something we spoke about before. I asked you, how important is it that there is a hub, that there is a cybersecurity center of excellence here in Singapore from an academic point of view?
I think it is a great opportunity to have this center of excellence, and I think it's an interesting set of stakeholders that are coming together from industry, from academia, from professional learning. So that gives an opportunity to enhance the education, to enhance the field, and to move it forward for Singapore, but maybe not only for Singapore.
Okay, that's great. Well, before I wrap everything up, Osman, I would like for you to have the last word, because I just want to talk about the private sector, the government. This is something that we see really coming together in a big way here in Singapore. How important is that collaboration and partnership going to be moving forwards?
I think that's a very interesting and important question, Manisha. I would think private sector shall acknowledge and recognize that it is a collective responsibility. We need to support government in multidisciplinary effort to continue to connect and collaborate to identify those vulnerabilities that we just spoke about, leverage and participate outreach programs to raise cybersecurity awareness, just like what we spoke about, and promote good cyber hygiene practices like Swapnendu was mentioning. So often, you know, people think it's a technology risk, but there are three components in my view: people, process, and technology or systems. So any of these could expose us in bringing that threat. And in this whole chain, in my opinion, the people are the weakest link. So as the nature of cyber threat goes beyond geographical boundaries, it is absolutely critical to establish a network of international partners that can work together to address to the common threats and share experience and build the defensive strategies, which is also why we are here today, to lead some efforts to establish a platform like at the Cyber Center of Excellence, and to demonstrate AMTD Group's commitment towards supporting Singapore governments on this important national agenda to shape and drive the cybersecurity capacity and capabilities in Singapore with international partners like University of Waterloo and IQ4.
Okay, well, it just, on that note, leaves it for me to wrap this up. I want to say thank you to all of our panelists, and let me just run through them once again. Mr. Florian Kirschbaum, who is the Executive Director of Cybersecurity and Privacy Institution at the University of Waterloo. Thank you, Florian. Thank you for staying up late. And congratulations on those fantastic results that you are getting from the university. Thank you so much. Also, Rodney Peterson, who is Director of the National Initiative for Cybersecurity and Education at NICE. He has other hats that he wears at all, but Rodney, I don't have another hour to run through all of your accolades. Thank you very much for the steering and the guidance. Frank Ciccio, as they say in Italy, but Ciccio Jr., CEO of IQ4, which is a lending online workforce and mobility platform company. Thank you, Frank. It was great and lovely to get to meet you. Gopal Badinjaruvital, I hope I got the pronunciation correct, who is VP, and there I get the double thumbs up, CISO and CDO of the Auto Club Group. For those of you who don't know, think of AAA if you've ever traveled in America, and you'll know what I'm talking about. And thank you for being so kind as to share a bit about your background, in your young 30s and all of that about India. And finally, of course, it falls to me to say a big thank you to Osman Faiz, who is the COO and CIO of AMT Digital here in Singapore. Huge congratulations on my part, and thank you for allowing me to be your moderator today.
Thank you, Manisha. Before we conclude, I'm just taking this opportunity to inviting Dr. Lam, the chairman of Hong Kong Cyberport, to say 2 words. I think there's some background noise. If you could mute yourself, please.
Well, thank you very much. Congratulations again to all the friends and supporters for this excellent initiative. I'd like to congratulate all the founders as well, and supporting organizations and volunteers, and actually the Singapore government providing excellent leadership in helping MAS and the university sector as well. I'm very excited, by what I've heard so far. Very hopeful for the post-COVID-19 world. As all of us are aware, COVID-19 has accelerated digital transformation so much, and now the rest is history. And cybersecurity is the key to success, and also to the security and well-being of everybody, businesses, families, government alike. So this is top priority. At Cyberport, which is 100% owned by the Hong Kong government, we have been a champion for driving digital transformation further, making Hong Kong a smart economy and a smart city, helping our young people and next generation SMEs to become smart enterprises and entrepreneurs. So we are very excited, with the huge market in front of us. That is a Greater Bay Area, or GBA, which is the next Silicon Valley and more for the world. And just Hong Kong is part of that. Hong Kong is like the international gateway for that, the international financial center for that. And Singapore is unquestionably the key, the strategic partner for all of this. We from Hong Kong have been watching Singapore with admiration. The COVID-19 efforts put in by Singaporeans have been heroic, very inspiring. And I think digital technology has played a key role, and cybersecurity will continue to play even a more important role because of healthcare priorities, and also life is the most precious. So I look forward to much more bonding between Singapore and Hong Kong. And with Singapore help, I think Hong Kong's efforts in the Greater Bay Area and the returns will be maximized. I'd like to also thank AMTD Group and AMTD Foundation for such good work. I think the AMTD Group is distinguished in that it is a very socially responsible kind of private sector champion. And it is also so much pro-Singapore, pro-Hong Kong, pro-regional cooperation and global connection there, helping startups and young people around the world. So I think this initiative is an A+ initiative. I have nothing more to add apart from congratulations once again and best wishes. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lam, for your few words. Really appreciate the collaboration between Hong Kong and Singapore and working together across Asia. As we come to the end of this webinar, I just wanted to say thanks to all of our partners, the partners who have worked very hard in this domain that have made this possible today. And obviously our guest of honor, Swapnendu Mohanty, distinguished witness, Professor Annie Ko, our founding member and lead founder, Chairman, AMTD Group, Calvin Choi, Faridun Hamdullahpur, President and Vice Chancellor of University of Waterloo, Frank Sisio, CEO and co-founder of IQ4, and Mr. Chia Hock Lai, President of Singapore FinTech Association, with Hong Kong Cyberport, Dr. Lee George Lam, together with AMTD Foundation and Infinity Power. and our knowledge advisor, EY, Namsun Liu. I would also like to thank in particular Singapore FinTech Association and AMTD staff who did much of the work that made the session possible today online for everyone. Especially it is late into night for people tuning in from United States and Canada. Cybersecurity is an extremely important domain as more and more business and consumer moving online to embrace digital economy and lifestyle in Singapore and across the region. So today is just one of the industrial effort led by AMTD, University of Waterloo, IQ4, Singapore FinTech Association, EY, and Hong Kong Cyberport to join forces and establish @WISE CCOE. So just to clarify, the WISE stands for University of Waterloo for W, I for IQ4, S for Singapore FinTech Association, E for EY, and obviously is for AMTD. We want to help to support the Smart Nation vision and establish Singapore on its way towards a global digital and cyber hub. Hope each of you who tuned in and joined us today were able to get some perspectives and join the community, also getting closure to make new relationships. I just wanted to remind you that the webinar of the today's session will be published online and encourage all of you to disseminate and share within your network so that we can drive efforts together to build a workforce that can handle the challenge of cybersecurity. We look forward to more partnership to collectively getting to a place where the relationship between the public and private sector, between companies and the government is at the speed and scale of the threats that we face. And with that, we hope to see you at the next event, be it another webinar or next summit. @WISE shall be organizing the annual summit. More details to follow. Once again, I just want to thank you all for attending today. My name is Osman Faiz, CIO, COO of AMTD Group. Thank you and see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.